Hi and welcome. I'm Cher the Shadow Walker, and I'm taking a look at British Columbia, Alaska, the Northwest Territories, Yellowknife, Yukon, Washington State, Idaho, Montana over the last 48 hours for cryptid sightings. And I'm starting with British Columbia. In the Harrison Lake area, the east side, a Bigfoot was sighted on April 4th at 11:15 p.m. by two campers. And it was observed moving parallel to the tree line, emitting a heavy bipedal gait and breaking large branches. It was reported to the BC Sasquatch Research. And a hellhound at Pitt Lake, April 5th at 2:30 a.m. Security guard there. A large, dark canine with luminous eyes seen standing motionless near the water's edge before vanishing into a fog bank, and it was reported to the local paranormal registry. And a spider humanoid in the Coquihalla Highway area near Britton Creek, April 4th at 1:45 a.m. Three motorists, separate motorists, and it was reported to the National Cryptid Database. What they saw was a multi-limbed pale figure seen scuttling across a rock face above the highway. It moved with mechanical speed. And a dog man in Missions near the Iron Mountain area. Two hikers saw at April 3rd at 10:50 p.m. described a 7-foot upright canine. It was reportedly soul reading, staring intensively at the witnesses from the ridge, and they reported it to the private research group. And a skinwalker in Tumbler Ridge, the south sector, April 4th at 9:20 p.m. Four residents reported hearing the voices of family members calling from the forest, and no person was found upon the investigation, and they reported it to the BC Spirit File. So in Montana, over the last 48 hours, there was a Bigfoot in the Blue Mountain area in the Lolo National Forest, April 4th at 3:20 a.m. Two truckers, a massive bipedal figure crossing Highway 12, described as rust in color and moving with incredible fluidity, and they reported to the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. And a dog man in the Flathead Lakes area, the west shoreline, on April 5th at 12:45 a.m. A property owner spotted a dog man standing near a residential woodpile. The creature let out a low vibrational growl that could be felt in the witness's chest, and they reported it to the North American Dogman. And a skinwalker on the Blackfeet Reservation on April 4th at 11:10 p.m., three family members reported a distorted coyote that stood on two legs and mimicked the sound of a whistling tea kettle to lure the family dog. And they reported it to the tribal enforcement. And a Mothman on the Bridger Canyon area, April 3rd at 8:15 p.m. Five students, they witnessed a 7-foot winged silhouette with reflective red disc eyes seen perched on a power pylon before dropping into a silent glide, and they reported it to MUFON. And spider humanoid in Lewis and Clark Caverns perimeter on April 5th at 4 a.m. Park rangers, a spindly, long-limbed entity seen crawling vertically up the limestone face, moved with a jerky, non-fluid motion, and they reported to the state cryptid liaison. So in Idaho, over the last 48 hours, a Bigfoot in the Paradise Reservoir, April 4th at 10:45 p.m. Two night fishermen standing in a shallow They were standing in the shallows. Witnesses reported red eyes reflecting off the water before it retreated into the pines, and it was reported to the Idaho Sasquatch research team. And a dog man in the Canfield Mountain area, On April 5th at 1:15 a.m., a utility worker, just one person, sighted near the cell tower, described as a wolf-headed man moving on all fours with incredible speed, and they reported it to the North Idaho Cryptid Ledger. And a skinwalker in the Fort Hall Reservation border on April 4th at 3:30 a.m., three motorists, a distorted coyote that stood up on two legs and ran at speeds exceeding 60 miles an hour alongside their vehicle, and they reported it to the local sheriff. And a spider humanoid in Sawtooth National Forest on April 3rd at 11:50 p.m. Two backpackers saw a spindly limbed figure seen walking between the treetops, using its arms and legs, made a clicking sound, and they reported it to the Forest Service. And a hellhound in the Snake River Canyon, Twin Falls area on April 5th at 2:10 a.m., a long haul trucker, a massive black dog with smoky fur seen on the bridge. The witness's electronics glitched as it passed, and they reported it to the private paranormal group. And in Washington state, over the last 48 hours, a Bigfoot in the Guilford Pinchot National Forest at 3:15 a.m. on April 4th, and it was two people that witnessed it, observed tree peeking from behind a large cedar, emitting a deep rhythmic chest beat before retreating, and they reported it to the BFRO. And a Mothman in Tacoma, near Port of Tacoma, on April 3rd at 8:45 p.m., five dock workers, a large winged humanoid with amber glowing eyes, was seen perched on a ship crane, took flight as the workers approached, and they reported to the Skywatch PNW. And a dog man in the east sector of Squinoma Pass on April 5th at 1:20 a.m. It was one truck driver. He saw a canine-headed humanoid seen standing on hind legs at the edge of the tree line, watching the traffic on the highway, and he reported it to the private digital log. And a spider humanoid in the Olympic National Park on April 4th at 11:30 p.m. Two backpackers, described as a long-limbed, multi-jointed figure moving vertically up a moss-covered spruce, and they reported it to the National Cryptid Database. And a skinwalker on Mount St. Helen near Spirit Lake on April 4th at 10 p.m. Three researchers reported reported hearing distorted whistling and the sound of their own names being called back to them from the brush, and they reported it to the Cascade Research Group, which I think was. Now jumping back to Canada, to the Northwest Territories, Yellowknife in the Yukon. Over the last 48 hours, a Bigfoot in the Nanny Valley of the Northwest Territories on April 4th at 11:20 p.m., and it was two bush pilots. A large bipedal figure seen near a geothermal vent. It appeared to be shaking a small tree to mark its territory, and they reported it to the Northwest Territories Cryptid Research. And a skinwalker in the Detta Road area in Yellowknife on April 5th at 1:15 a.m., and it was a local resident, reported hearing a distressed child's voice coming from a frozen lake edge. No tracks were found upon investigation, and they reported it to the Yellowknife Spirits. And Hellhound in Whitehorse, the Yukon Miles Canyon area, April 4th, 3 a.m., two night walkers, a massive black smoke-shaped like dog with red eyes, and they said that they were like pinpoint light eyes, and it dissolved when the flashlight was shone on it, and they reported it to the Yukon Paranormal Group. And a spider humanoid in the Dempster Highway area in the Yukon at 140 kilometer area, April 3rd At 11:45 p.m., a long-haul trucker, just one, observed a long-limbed, multi-jointed shadow crossing the road at 3 rapid strides, moved faster than a wolf, and they reported it to the National Cryptid Database. And a dog man in the Beaver Creek, Yukon area, April 5th at 4:20 a.m., 3 travelers seen outside a roadside motel. The creature was standing on its hind legs looking through the second-story window, and they reported it to the dogman file. And that's it for that area. And now jumping back to the U.S. in Alaska, a Bigfoot in the Port Chatham area, and it's an abandoned site. April 4th at 11:45 p.m., 2 researchers, heavy rock throwing and wood knocks, reported thermal signature detected a 9-foot figure moving through the dense brush, and they reported it to the AK Bigfoot Network. A dog man in the Copper River Basin on April 3rd at 10:20 p.m. 3 hunters. 3 hunters reported their cabin was circled by the creature, and it was scratching at the exterior walls and huffing loudly outside their door, and they reported it to the private sightings registry. And a skinwalker in the Manusta area valley on April 5th at 12:15 a.m., 1 resident witness reported hearing a distressed cry that sounded exactly like their neighbor, but their neighbor was confirmed to be away in Anchorage, and they reported it to the local dispatch. And a Mothman in Juneau on April 4th at 8:50 p.m., 2 hikers saw a large dark-winged entity seen gliding from a glacier towards the tree line. Witness noted the reddish reflection of the eyes, and they reported it to the National Cryptid Sighting Base. And a spider humanoid in the Denali Highway near mile 42 on April 3rd at 1:10 a.m., 2 truckers, separate ones, Alaska State Troopers is who they reported it to, and it was reported a thin, multi-jointed, pale figure crossing the road on all 6s with unnatural, twitchy speed. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.